Tonight, All Progressives Congress looks forward to a date for its Congress as governors meet with the president on Sunday to decide when the party's convention will hold. It's a starting point for the NNPC Limited with the constitution of a new board for the company. The president demands transparency and accountability from the board members. We continue our year 2021 review. Tonight, we focus on sports and we'll be speaking with DJOKOVIC, a renowned sports journalist. And Kazakhstan's president orders security forces to fire without warning amid growing violence, citizens' protests and crackdown by government agents. Plus, international news from our London studio.
On business news tonight, Nigeria's forex reserves sustain its descent as it declines further by $1.78 million.
On sports news tonight, world number one Novak Djokovic to be allowed to play at the French Open later this year, even if he is not vaccinated against COVID-19.
And from Abuja, more reactions on the declarations of bandits as terrorists. Governor Bello Matawali of Zamfara State applauds federal government's decision.
Ahead of its convention slated for February, governors of the All Progressives Congress, APC, are set to meet on Sunday, January the 9th, 2022, to fix a date for the conduct of the political gathering. Governor Simon Lalong of Plateau State made this disclosure to State House correspondents after a meeting with the president in his office today. According to him, President Muhammadu Buhari has given an assurance that nothing will stop the APC from conducting the convention as scheduled. Our State House correspondent, Gloria Umezuke, reports.
The National Convention of the All Progressives Congress, APC, is a focal concern here as Governor Simon Lalong of Plateau State meets with President Muhammadu Buhari in his office. After that meeting, Governor Lalong, who doubles as chairman of the Northern Governors Forum, announces that governors of the All Progressives Congress will meet in less than 72 hours to decide on a definite date for the convention.
The president still stands committed that there must be an immediate convention. There must be convention. So it is that convention. You know, when convention is coming, there are fears here and there. Some people will tell you it will work, it will not work. But I'm happy, I don't want to draw the conclusion, but the visit, the president has already assured us, and you know there is already a notice that all the governors are meeting on Sunday. By Sunday, we will tell you when we are doing the convention. We are taking a date already. Some parties have done their own. The PDP did their own. Nothing will stop APC from doing their own.
Recent remarks by the president in an interview with the National Television Authority asking the APC to put its house in order or risk ceding power to the opposition party is another issue the governors intend to address amidst the current litigations against the chairman of the National Convention Caretaker Committee.
With the admonition given by the president is a signal, it's a warning signal to all of us to sit up and ensure that we have a seamless, we have a very clean, fair and transparent convention so that our party will not get disintegrated. But I just want to assure you that in so many ways when we meet, we harmonize all interests and we come out as an APC.
The president also met with Governor Mai Malabuni of Yobe State, who is the caretaker of the Extraordinary Convention Planning Committee.
Now, even though the Yobe State governor did not speak to State House correspondents after that meeting, one thing still stands clear. That is, the APC governors are determined to iron out every grey area regarding the upcoming National Convention by Sunday. Now, if that convention were to hold in the first week of February, as widely speculated, then the party has a few days only to turn in the mandatory 21-day notice to INEC. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
It appears the ruling part of the APC is fully conscious of the dangers of a divided house ahead of the general elections, and its National Reconciliation Committee is on the road meeting with stakeholders to ensure calm in the party. The committee, led by Senator Abdullahi Adamu, has been touring Lagos and Ogun states, where they met with Governors Babajide Sanwo-Olu and Dapo Abiodun.
The governor of Ogun State, Dapo Abiodun, welcoming the chairman and members of the All Progressives Congress National Reconciliatory Committee to the Presidential Lodge in Abeokuta, the state capital. The committee, which is led by its chairman and former governor of Nasarawa State, Abdullahi Adamu, is in the state as part of moves to reconcile aggrieved groups within the party. And before its assignment, it pays a courtesy visit to Governor Abiodun, where both leaders agree on the need for rapprochement ahead of next year's general elections.
Anything that would divert the attention of this administration, we must ensure that, we avoid it. And one way to do it is through this assignment that we're given, where there are any clutches, areas of concern in the relationship between our major stakeholders. It is our hope and prayer that through the effort of this committee, we will be able to overcome by the grace of God.
We must continue to find ways to reconcile our differences, because in that, or in doing that, would lie our strength. So on that note, Mr. Chairman, it is my pleasure to welcome you as a party faithful and a party loyalist, and someone who respects the authority of the party. We are indeed glad and pleased to have you in our state.
After concluding its task in Ogun State, the team moves to Lagos and is straight to the government house to visit Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, who restates the importance of reconciliation within the rank and file of the All Progressives Congress.
Given the caliber of eminent Nigerians and members of our party that have been drawn together, I'm certain that the outcomes of these interventions that you've taken up will be very fruitful. The outcomes will further strengthen unity in the party, and the outcomes will further deepen democracy in our country.
At the end of the visits, the governors believe that it is indeed essential for all party faithful to cooperate with the committee so that all pending issues will be resolved in good time.
Meanwhile, some aggrieved members of the ruling party, the APC, have taken the Governor Mai Mala Buni-led caretaker and extraordinary convention planning committee before a federal high court in Abuja over plans to hold the APC National Convention in February. In the suit dated January the 4th, 2022, the applicants are seeking an order of the court to restrain the Buni-led committee from going ahead with the convention. They prayed the court for an order to stop the convention on the grounds that state congresses are yet to be completed in all the 36 states of the Federation. The plaintiffs raised 5 questions for the court to determine and also sought 8 declarative reliefs. Staying with politics, former governor of Niger State, Dr. Muazu Aliyu, says that the People's Democratic Party has agreed to rezone the presidency to the northern region. Dr. Aliyu stated this when he hosted the Atiku Support Organization in Minna, the Niger State capital, saying that he is confident of the group's success and declared his support for the group. He also explained that it was agreed that any candidate from any part of the country can now contest in the election.
One, to ensure the success or the emergence of Atiku Abubakar as a candidate and as a president. And the support group has been doing a wonderful job, going from one place to the other, one ward to the other, and they will go throughout the crannies of the country to ensure that success. So, and I'm assured, they said that no matter what type of primaries is adopted, whether direct or indirect, that they are ready for whatever that will happen. Yes. So that I'm very comfortable with what they are doing. In our zoning agreement, that we agreed to rezone to the north as requested by others, but that we had an agreement there written openly that as a result of what has happened, that any candidate from any side of the country can now contest this election.
The president has inaugurated the board of the newly incorporated Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, chaired by Senator Marjorie Chubal Kadibo, with the Group Managing Director of the company, Mele Kyari, as the Chief Executive Officer. Mr. Umar Ajia is named the Chief Financial Officer, with 6 other members representing the various zones. After the inauguration, President Muhammadu Buhari urged the board members to focus on profitability and operate at par with industry peers across the world.
There should be full alignment and synergy between NNPC Limited, the Upstream Regulatory Commission, and the Midstream and Downstream Regulatory Authority in compliance with the provisions of the law in all respects to deliver the onerous reforms envisaged for the energy industry. NNPC Limited is expected to operate at par with its industry peers elsewhere in the world, while acting as an enabler company that will foster the development of other sectors of our economy. I expect the NNPC Limited to be mindful of our commitments to our net carbon zero aspirations and to ensure total alignment with the global energy transition realities. I will count on the professional insights and ethical conduct of the board members to ensure the delivery of our promises to Nigerians. The leadership and members of the National Assembly should be appreciated for their seamless support in this journey towards a viable, accountable, and transparent energy industry.
President Muhammadu Buhari. Nigerians in diaspora have been speaking about the participation of vulnerable groups in politics as the country braces for the political horse trading that characterizes an election year. One of them is the British Labour MP for Newcastle upon Tyne Central, Chi Onwurah. While commenting on the high cost of running for public office in Nigeria, she stressed that the only way for women to change the narrative is for them to actively take part in the political process.
One big barrier is that how much it can cost to run politically in Nigeria. Well, two actually, how much it can cost, and there's an age limitation, and I support the not too young to run campaign because I think that Nigerians of all ages should be able to represent their communities. We're here today in Parliament, and if you're walking around, you'll see that most of the paintings, the statues, they're all of men, and they're often and mainly dead men, and a lot of them, wearing, 17th century dress, which doesn't really, so nothing feels like it's about sort of women or about, and I think that's a real barrier. But what I'd say to any, woman who, I'd say two things really, just look at the politicians around you. You can do better than them. They got into that position through a combination of luck, sometimes hard work, but often the privilege of where they were born or who their background. You can do better. You can do better than them. Whatever challenges you think you faced in your life, they are part of the reason why you will do better than them, because you will be bringing that experience to Parliament. And the other thing, I would say is that, things, decisions are made by those who show up. And unless we take part, unless we, I know there are challenges now. It is not a level playing field. It's not open. It's not always fair. But unless we take part, we won't change that.
You can watch the full interview with the Labour MP for Newcastle upon Tyne Central, Chi Onwurah, on our new program, Diaspora Network, which captures the activities of Nigerians that are flying the country's flag outside the country. The program makes its debut this Saturday at 7:30 p.m. with a repeat broadcast on Sunday at 11 p.m. In part 2 after the break, nurses declare nationwide strike, plus the continuation of our 2021 review. Tonight, we take a look at the sports sector. to stay with us. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the News at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. APC looks forward to a date for its national convention as governors meet with President Muhammadu Buhari on Sunday to decide when the party's exercise will hold. The NNPC gets a new board for the company. The NNPC gets a new board for the company, while the president demands transparency and accountability from the members. We continue our year 2021 review, and tonight we focus on sports, and we'll be speaking with DJ Omotoyinbo, a renowned sports journalist. And Kazakhstan's president orders security forces to fire without warning amid growing violent citizens' protests and crackdown by government agents. As we continue our review of the year 2021, tonight we beam our searchlight on sports. Our sports correspondent, Irene Ewanwa, throws more light on the report that chronicles the eventful year. So, Irene, good to have you.
Hello, how are you?
So tell us what to expect. And hello, Yemi Adebayo as well.
Yeah, good to be here.
Yes, so tell us, what do we expect from this report, talking about sports in 2021?
Yeah, thank you, Ewa. 2021 was an interesting year. After the sport disruption, we had sports gradually coming back in 2021. We had the National Sports Festival, we had the Olympic Games, we had the Paralympic Games. After that, one major event that happened last year was the National Sport Federation elections. And also we have football returning in full. We had the Super Eagles, and all that. So these are the major highlights we did in this report.
Sports in 2021 assumes a more lively disposition despite the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic that disrupted economic and social activities in 2020. In Nigeria, the National Sports Festival in Benin City, Edo State, finally got underway after several postponements owing to increasing virus infection rate. After 3 weeks of action, Delta State emerged overall champion after topping the medals table. But aside from these competitions, what can be done to engage the homegrown athletes?
It was not perfect, but I'm really looking forward to Delta next year, because I know the guys in charge, but at least they have a track record, so you have an expectation for that. The youth games was super for us, because if you notice on that table, we had more of our competitors coming second, silver and bronze, which for me was good, because we clearly had the youngest contingent at the competition.
The Tokyo Olympics had its share of shortcomings caused by the virus outbreak, which implied for the first time in the competition's history, fans are not allowed physical access to the games. Team Nigeria presented 63 athletes in 9 sports, but athletes' protest over remuneration and disqualification of some Nigerian athletes from the track events for failing to comply with the out-of-competition testing requirement plagued the country's campaign. In the midst of this, Blessing Oborodudu in women's wrestling and Ese Brume in women's long jump put Nigeria on the medal table at the end of proceedings.
There's been the highs, there's been the lows. There have been concerns for Nigeria, but we can always look forward to the future, that there's an improvement somewhere. From the Olympics, where we had quite a lot of promise going into it, and unfortunately, it just didn't live up to expectation.
The Tokyo Paralympics followed suit, and as usual, became Nigeria's biggest platform to excel. Nigeria's Paralympians left the Japanese capital with 4 gold, 1 silver, and 5 bronze medals. After the Olympics and Paralympics, the National Sports Federation's elections raised several questions regarding the autonomy and independence of the governing bodies.
Whilst they say things about government interference and support for the game is sort of like overbearing sometimes. I genuinely don't think that's the case. You need to identify what you need to do together, because strategic partnerships very, very important for cricket and other associations going forward.
Moses Simon playing as right wing back today, delivers that one into the box.
The performance of Nigeria's national football teams, Super Eagles and Super Falcons in international competitions comes into focus.
The opportunity, and Nigeria have a dream start.
So we need to go back to the basics, you know, and we need to look for the right structures, the right foundations that will make us recover ourselves. In the African Footballer of the Year award, we are really hardly mentioned anymore in the real sense of it.
What happened to globally, the pandemic, is also reflected in Nigerian sports generally. So we really didn't make much mark, and even in football competitions that we qualify, we didn't really qualify with relative ease. We struggled all throughout. I just hope that by 2022 we should be able to do things better.
2022 promises to be another eventful episode for Nigerian sports, with the African Cup of Nations in Cameroon, the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, and FIFA World Cup in Qatar all in stock.
These are some of the major events that happened last year.
Interesting one there. Thank you so much, Irene. Yemi Adebayo, yes, 2022 is here. It's a World Cup year, but of course, AFCON will be coming up in just a few days. What can you tell us?
Yeah, a few days. 2022 is going to be very loaded, but my 4 top picks, special emphasis on Nigeria, AFCON that you just mentioned in Cameroon, a few days. Of course, we're going to be looking at the Commonwealth Games, July, August. Nigeria's going to be involved as well. National Sports Festival in Delta State, sometime around November. And of course, the biggest one this year is the FIFA World Cup towards the end of the year. So that's my 4 top picks. But like I said, 2022 is going to be loaded globally, and we're hoping there won't be any disruption caused by COVID-19.
Exactly. Many thanks, guys. Irene Wawa and Yemi Adebayo for your insights right there on sports, of course. Well, we have more on our review of sports in 2021 with our guest, Mr. DJOKOVIC, who is a sports journalist. But in the meantime, a meeting organized by the Lagos State chapter of the National Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives to inform the government of an impending 3-day warning strike turned into a rowdy gathering when the Special Assistant on Labour to the Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu attempted to address the group. Now, the members of the association were protesting poor welfare conditions and declared a warning strike to begin at midnight on Monday, January the 10th. Our correspondent, Mary Alali Yusuf, tells us more.
Scores of nurses and midwives are in this hall. This meeting will determine if a planned 3-day warning strike of the National Association of Nigerian Nurses and Midwives will take effect. The meeting is reasonably calm until the Special Assistant on Labour to the Governor takes the stand to address the crowd. The agitation of the members is so much that the government official exits the building. The association is accusing the government of not attending to their demands, which include recruiting to shore up a depleted workforce.
The way things are is like there's need to declare a state of emergency in the health sector, because so many things are calling for attention that the government needs to look into. The attrition rate is very high, the workload on our members is very high, and for our members to give the optimum care, there are some things that we expect the government to do.
The government representative in turn accuses the association of not providing important information to work on.
The work is ongoing already on their demands. Most of their demands we have informed the leadership of the union at the last meeting we had with them that we are working on them. We asked them to come up with information that will assist the government in ensuring that most of their demands are met. So they are yet to come up with information requested by the government.
If the nurses and midwives proceed with the warning strike, no matter how short, it will deal a blow to patient care, which could be avoided with reasoned and patient negotiation between both parties. Mary Alale Yusuf, Channels Television News.
Still ahead on the news at 10, of course, we will continue our focus on the year 2021 review, talking about sports. And on business news, Nigeria's forex reserves sustained a decent dip further by $1.78 million. Join us again. Welcome back. Let's now return to our end-of-year review on sports, and we are joined by sports journalist Mr. DJOKOVIC. It's great to have you on the news at 10.
Good to be here anyway.
So let's talk about 2021 and sports sector. How would you rate Nigerian sports in the past year?
On a scale of 1 to 10, maybe somewhere between 5 and 6. We could have done so much better, but you know, COVID had a debilitating effect on most industries, particularly sports. So a lot of athletes could not train when they needed to. So preparations were hampered for a lot of competition. So you could say that that was a mitigating factor. But the issue with us is that we never tend to plan properly, and we tend to leave things till the very last minute. So we have great potential, but we never maximize that potential because I think our preparations are always shoddy and maybe short. We do not do long term. And for success in sports, you have to have a vision, a long-term plan to get results. There are no shortcuts.
Now, it's interesting you talked about preparations for major international competitions, which was a big issue, no thanks to the COVID pandemic. And we're still in the pandemic, as it were. But how can this be addressed, in 2022?
It's long-term planning. I mean, we know the events that are coming. I mean, these events don't just spring up on us. We know the timetable is always known, like at least, in some cases, 2-3 years ahead. So we always tend to relax and wake up, and when it is a few weeks to the tournament or a few months to the event, we start rushing. I mean, it's never going to work. I always say that there's no shortcuts to success in life and in sport. You've got to work for it. You've got to work long term. You have to have a long-term plan. And we never want to do long term. And I think that's one of the main reasons we are not realizing our full potential in sports, because it's all about planning for the long haul. You have to do that. If you don't do that, and then we know Commonwealth Games are coming. I hope I'm not right. I hope I'm wrong. But you find out that 4 weeks to the games, everybody starts rushing. I mean, we know these things are coming. So why do we wait till the very last minute before we start getting things in place? And in the question of funding, I don't know how or why it's so difficult to always get monies out for events that we know are coming up. So that's another factor that mitigates against good performance in sports. The potentials are there. There's a lot of promise, but if you do not get the planning and administrative area right, we'll continue to struggle.
So let's talk about the grassroots now, because, of course, we had the Olympics last year. It didn't look as if we were doing too well. So how do we develop sports at the grassroots?
I think the schools have a lot to do with that. Sport has to go back to the schools. When we were growing up, school sports was massive, was huge. A lot of talents were developed and discovered and developed from there. And you have a situation now where you have schools that don't even have a sports program, that probably don't even have a sports field, which is ridiculous, really. So we need to get back, create platforms at that grassroots level for various sports. And those platforms are, that's where you throw up youngsters, new talents, and you develop them from there. But I do know that you have to spread the dragnet while there's some kids who are not in school, but the school gives you a framework. It gives you a talent pool where you can choose from. So school sports, we have to go back there because it was our strength in the past, and it was where we discovered a whole lot of legends of Nigerian sports, and we have to get back to that.
Interesting one there. There's actually one more, but very quickly. I mean, financial autonomy for sports administrations. What's your take on that? Very quickly.
It's the ideal, but in our situation, it's not realistic. Most of the sports are amateur sports. They depend on government for infrastructure, for funding. They can't survive on their own. So that's the ideal. Maybe some professionals, so a few sports might be able to do that, but generally, it's almost impossible for some sports to survive without government funding.
We'll leave it at that. DJOKOVIC, a renowned sports journalist, thank you for your thoughts on the news at 10.
My pleasure to be here.
Let's head to the nation's capital, where Gloria Umezuke is standing by at our Abuja studio. Hello, Gloria.
Thank you, Ayotunde. We begin with more reactions here, which continues to trail the declaration of bandit groups in the country as terrorists. Well, one of the latest to react is the Zamfara State Governor, Bello Matawali, who has applauded the decision by the federal government, saying it was a long-awaited move. According to the governor, the military was earlier constrained to use certain equipment, but with the declaration, they can use any possible weapon against the terrorists. The governor was speaking after the screening of new army recruits from the 14 local government areas in the state. He also bore his mind on the recent attacks on communities in Anka and Bukuyum local government areas of the state.
We're all waiting for this declaration, and I personally am happy with this declaration. Personally, I'm happy with the declaration. And why I'm happy is that because before our military cannot be able to use some equipment to fight these bandits, but with this declaration now, they can be able to use any possible weapons to sweep out all these criminals. So I'm very happy, and in fact, we have started discussing with the higher authority on the best way that the Tucano should come to Zamfara, and I believe very soon the Tucano will be deployed to Zamfara State so that all the gray areas are going to be cleared. My Commissioner for Security, the Army Commandant, the Director SSS and others, we have already strategized, and we are going to hear the result very soon. Maybe by Monday you will hear what we have done. You know, the security measures is not something that I'm going to speak on the screen or on the pages of newspaper, but I assure you that the government has taken a drastic step that the people are going to be happy with the action that we are going to take.
Meanwhile, as the Zamfara State Governor looks towards other strategies in tackling insecurity, the Kano State Government is seeking spiritual solution and has organized a prayer session for peace and security in the country. Scholars from the Tijaniya Islamic sect from Algeria are in the ancient city to lead the prayers for the return of peaceful coexistence and a secured environment. They later visited the Kano State Government House, where they met with Governor Umar Ganduje, who said the visit, besides its religious significance, opens an opportunity to re-establish link between Kano and the North African country.
Here in Kano, it has been our tradition to invite ulama in this very hall, read the Holy Quran, offer prayers, and God has been accepting our prayers. Because of today, Kano is the most peaceful state in the Federation. But since our neighbors are not in peace, other parts of the country are not in peace, there is no way we can remain in peace. Therefore, we decided to organize these national prayers, inviting international ulama to come and assist us to pray to Nigeria, pray to the President of Nigeria, so that there is peace and stability. So we are using this opportunity to renew the link between Kano and Algeria, especially in the area of education. I'm happy to see that the Sheikh has come with a number of professors from universities in Algeria. And tomorrow or after, there will be an occasion with Bayero University. And also we have 2 state universities. So we'll see this opportunity to develop a strong link between Algeria and Kano, especially pertaining to education.
Well, 4 operatives of the Department of State Security and the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps have been arrested by the police in Osun State for kidnapping. They were said to have whisked away a bureau de change businessman to a bush on the Elisha Road, where they demanded ransom. Addressing journalists, the State Commissioner of Police, Mr. Wale Olokode, said one Ajibola Ogunibi allegedly connived with the DSS and NSCDC operatives to kidnap the bureau de change operator and was given 15,000 naira after the ransom was paid. 19 other persons were also paraded for allegedly committing various criminal offences, ranging from kidnapping to conspiracy armed robbery, murder, cultism and unlawful possession of firearms. Well, that's it from the nation's capital. It's back to you, Ayo, for the rest of the news at 10.
Many thanks, Gloria. The Lagos State Police Command is maintaining that the Dowen College student, Sylvester Oromoni Jr., died of natural cause. While the State Commissioner of Police, Mr. Hakeem Odumosu, who was speaking with journalists today at the police headquarters, explained that the two autopsy results, that is, and another from the toxicologist, have shown that late Sylvester died of causes devoid of any form of torture.
It's the maiden briefing of the Lagos State Police Command in 2022. The conference hall comes alive with the presence of these newsmen who have come for a crucial matter, the outcome of a month-long police investigation into the cause of death of Sylvester Oromoni Jr. The Lagos State Commissioner of Police, Hakeem Odumosu, debunks allegations of complexity in their investigations, explaining that the two autopsy results from Delta and that conducted in Lagos in the presence of 7 consultant pathologists, 4 senior registrars on autopsy posting, and 3 police officers from the homicide section of the state CID show that Sylvester Oromoni Jr. died of natural causes.
The first autopsy was done in Warri on December 2nd, so 2021. Our findings at the second autopsy include marked pallor of organs, pneumonia, that is infection of the lungs, infections of the liver and kidneys, as well as the heart. These infections emanated from the ankle infection described earlier in the report. So, microscopic sections also confirmed these findings. Death was caused by septicemia following infections of the lungs and kidneys arising from ankle wound. No evidence of blunt force trauma in this body. The findings in the esophagus and stomach are not compatible with chemical intoxication. Death in this case is natural. The legal advice, however, indicated that there is no prima facie case of murder, no involuntary manslaughter, and no malicious administering of poison with intention to harm against the students and the housemasters. Hence, they cannot be prosecuted.
The Lagos Police Boss warns those threatening to cause problems over the outcome of the investigations to seek redress in court or face the full weight of the law.
Members of the public who may have any misgivings about the outcome of the police investigation, medical inquiry, and legal advice, with this case, are advised to follow due process of the law rather than resorting to self-help. The police do not fold their arms and allow any act or omission that could threaten the peace being enjoyed in the states.
The coroner inquest is just a week away, and it's the appropriate venue for aggrieved parties, as all sides will be heard.
Welcome to Business News. Nigeria's foreign exchange reserves has maintained its downtrend despite the central bank interventions in the forex market. Latest data from the CBN shows that gross reserves of the country's external buffers closed lower by $1.78 million week on week to $40.52 billion as at January the 5th. The Lagos State government has been given a breakdown of its 2022 budget called Budget of Consolidation. The breakdown was presented by the Commissioner for Economic Planning and Budget, who says infrastructure development will go up 35% of the entire budget size approved for the new fiscal year.
Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu signing into law the 2022 Appropriation Law on the last day of 2021. A move which signals the commencement of work for the new year. Barely a week after, the Ministry of Economic Planning and Budget is giving a breakdown of the amount allocated to major sectors in the budget, infrastructure appears to be taking a lion's share.
Infrastructure is essential to statewide economic and social development. It is therefore important that we accelerate the completion of our ongoing project to release the inherent value of the projects to the people of Lagos. We have increased our investment in infrastructure by 86% over prior year budget to 619 billion, representing 35% of the entire budget size.
The commissioners in charge of education and transportation are also on ground to give more details on their various sectors.
New classroom blocks, new schools, entirely new schools, expansion of existing schools. All these we plan to spend a minimum of like 10 billion naira.
We are spending 153 billion to complete the first phase of the red line as well as the first phase of the blue line so that we can then get it into passenger operation by the fourth quarter of 2022.
That's not all. The state government is also prioritizing existing contractor-funded infrastructure projects that will be beneficial to residents of the state.
Completion of 8 stadia across the 5 Ibile divisions of Lagos State to facilitate youth development, engagement, and community sports. The construction of the 6-lane reinforced concrete Lekki-Ekpe Expressway from Eleko Junction to Ekpe T Junction, and then the construction of a 130-bed new Mercy ultra-modern and fit-for-purpose pediatric programmed and emergency general hospital. We believe that when this hospital, which will be located at Lagos Island, is completed, it will be the largest specialist children's hospital in sub-Saharan Africa. And then the construction of the Ekwebi Link Bridge to Maryland that will improve significantly travel time and alternative route options in the axis.
The Lagos State approved budget for the year 2022 includes 1.167 trillion naira for capital expenditure, 591.281 billion naira for recurrent. Total revenue is estimated at 1.237 trillion naira. Deficit funding requirement is 521.275 billion naira, which is 21% of debt service, falls within the fiscal sustainability benchmark of 40%.
The equities market ended the first trading week of the year on a positive note. Laddie Williams tells us more.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, even though we didn't see much of an expected Santa rally in December, it appears we're having it in the new year because the market has ended the first trading week in 2022 on a positive side, with the all-share index up over 2% year to date. The local bourse added 130 billion naira, was an all-round improvement on the activity chart as investors raised their interest for equities on the NGX. Our volume and value contribution was largely driven by newly listed consumer goods component, Boa Foods, which accounted for a majority of Friday's transactions. We also see GTCO and Champs PLC on that counter. Cornerstone Insurance was the top gainer today, adding 5 kobo to its share price, up 10%. While on the flip side, Consolidated Hallmark Insurance led the losers counter, with the share price dropping 7 kobo. Sectoral performance was all green with the sectors we track. Wow, first week of 2022, all green. Let's see if the bull can carry on this trend next week, although this market can be quite dynamic. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Laddie Williams. It's back to you.
And that's business news tonight. I'm Teniola Shubowale. It's back to Ayo for the rest of the news at 10.
Thanks a lot, Teniola. As unrest continues in Kazakhstan, the president has ordered security forces to shoot to kill without warning. For more on this and other international news, here's Simon Pusey with Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Kazakhstan's authoritarian leader says he has ordered security forces to fire without warning amid a violent crackdown on anti-government protests. President Kasim Jomart Tokayev also said 20,000 bandits had attacked the main city of Almaty, the epicenter of protests sparked by a fuel price hike. This was the sound of gunfire in the city overnight. The Interior Ministry says 26 armed criminals and 18 security officers had been killed so far in the unrest. Russian paratroopers have been deployed as part of a peacekeeping force. The General Secretary of the ex-Soviet alliance said it would number around 2,500 troops and could be strengthened if necessary. 2 arrests have been made after 10 bodies were found inside a car in the central Mexican state of Zacatecas. The discovery came after the vehicle was left outside a historic local state governor's office. Officials became suspicious of a Mazda SUV car and found the bodies early on Thursday. The governor of the central state confirmed that 2 suspects had been detained. Mexico has long suffered with high levels of crime and rising murder rates. Ceremonies have been held in Paris to mark the 7th anniversary of the attacks on French satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo and a kosher supermarket in which 17 people were killed. The French Interior Minister and Paris Mayor led the tributes to the victims of the Charlie Hebdo attacks before laying flowers outside the hyper-caché supermarket. In 2015, the offices of Charlie Hebdo were stormed by 2 gunmen who shot and killed 12 people before being killed in a police assault 2 days later. A South African minister says the key to the prison cell on Robben Island, which once occupied Nelson Mandela, is going to be returned to South Africa rather than be auctioned in the US. The auction had been due to take place in New York until South Africa's Culture Secretary objected, saying it belongs to the people of South Africa. Mandela spent 27 years in prison for campaigning to end white minority rule. 18 of those years were spent on Robben Island. The key was used by the jailer Christo Brand, who later became his friend and was planning to auction it off. Anti-military rallies have continued in Sudan, with witnesses saying security forces shot dead 3 protesters and fired tear gas in the cities of Omdurman and Bahri. Protesters marched through the streets of Khartoum, chanting, beating drums and waving flags in the first of several rounds of demonstrations planned for this month. They're attempting to keep up pressure on the military, whose coup halted a power-sharing arrangement negotiated after the 2019 overthrow of Omar al-Bashir. Zimbabwe's president has declared that 28 parliamentary by-elections postponed in 2020 because of the coronavirus pandemic will now be held on the 26th of March. Critics have accused the government of using the pandemic to thwart democracy. The state electoral body says that local government by-elections would also be held. They're being seen as an early test for general elections scheduled for mid-2023. The world's #1 tennis player is not being held captive in Australia, according to a top official, as Novak Djokovic faces deportation over COVID vaccination rules. The Serb star remains in an immigration detention hotel in Melbourne after being denied entry with a court challenge due on Monday, a week before the Australian Open begins. Fans have gathered in protest outside the hotel, where the Czech player Renata Voráčová is also staying. The country's Home Affairs Minister made the comments after Djokovic's parents claimed he was being held against his will.
He is free to leave at any time that he chooses to do so, and Border Force will actually facilitate that.
And finally, a project called Mindful Smashing has been set up in the Netherlands, aimed at providing locked-down locals with ways of releasing anger and frustration. The project was started during the pandemic to help people release pent-up stress. Dutch bars, restaurants and most stores have been closed since mid-December. The owner says he has seen a big increase in COVID-related inquiries over the course of the pandemic. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon, and welcome to Sports News. Nigeria Super Eagles continued their preparation for the Africa Cup of Nations with a 2-0 victory over Cameroonian football club Cotton Sport in a warm-up game played in Garoua. Captain Ahmed Musa and Villarreal forward Samuel Chukwueze were on the score sheet in the test game. Meanwhile, the team is still waiting on the arrival of Tyrone Ebuehi and Jamilu Collins. And the finalists for the FIFA Best Women's and Men's Player of the Year awards have been announced. Alexia Putellas made the women's shortlist alongside her Barcelona and Spain teammate Jennifer Hermoso, while Chelsea and Australia's Sam Kerr completes the list. The men's finalists are PSG's Lionel Messi, who won his 7th Ballon d'Or in 2021, Bayern Munich's Robert Lewandowski, and Liverpool's Mohamed Salah, the current Premier League top scorer. In tennis, world #1 Novak Djokovic will be allowed to play in the French Open later this year, even if he is not vaccinated against COVID-19, after Australia's decision to revoke a visa the Serbian had been granted on the basis of a medical exemption ahead of the Australian Open in Melbourne. France does not bar unvaccinated people from entering its territory, but imposes tougher restrictions than on those who have had the shot. And that's a wrap on Sports News. Thank you for watching. I'm Victor Matthias. Is back to Ayatunde.
Thanks a lot, Victor. And the main news again. APC governors today met with the president to decide when the party's national convention will hold. Governor Simon Lalong said the president gave an assurance that nothing will stop the APC from conducting the political gathering. That's the news at 10. Many thanks for watching. I'm Ayatunde Balogun. On behalf of everyone here, it's good night and please stay safe.